Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I am a CICC licensed immigration consultant, and we are back with another episode of the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Today being a Saturday, of course. There have been a few draws. Express entry is back. Provincial nominee programs are looking up. Things are finally beginning to move. The immigration backlogs are slowly but steadily reducing. So a little bit of discussion about all that. Let's get started with our weekly roundup. Quote of the week: I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I cannot accept not trying. Michael Jordan, amazing quote. If you haven't tried, then obviously you can't fail. That's a very famous saying as well. Therefore, you have to give it a shot. You have to sort of put in your best effort. If you fail, well, everybody fails. You fail at different things, but you learn, you get up, and you keep prodding along. And that's the only way you will find success. This is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Do follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, of course. And we are also there on TikTok if you fancy that platform. Today's topics of discussion, of course, will be the PNPs and the updates. We will be talking about express entry a bit briefly. We obviously have a bit of other news, and then we move on to question and answers, starting with the PNP draws. Ontario held the PNP draw on the 10th of January. This was the employer job offer stream, the foreign worker stream of the Ontario's immigration and nominee program. They issued 404 invitations, and let me see if I can pull up how many invitations. What are the knock codes? Yes, I have it here. The number of knock codes this was on the Ontario's website. The number of knock codes were plenty. The minimum score for this particular stream that they issued was at 35, and these were the knock codes, plenty of them. A lot of people got invited, and if at all you are eligible, then you obviously should have your own profile on the Ontario's website. Now, just to differentiate, because people always get confused when they see these draws. These draws are primarily related to people who have a job offer in Canada, based on which they can file an expression of interest. There are three other streams in which you don't need to file your expression of interest. First is human capital priority stream. Whenever Ontario conducts a draw, tech draw, or general priority occupation stream, you would get invited based on your express entry profile. Second is the French speaker stream. If you have the relevant French speaking skills, if your knock code is a primary knock code that has been identified by Ontario and your CRS range is within their expectation, you would get invited. The third is the skills trade stream. If you have work experience in a specific skills trade, which is also your primary occupation, then again, you may get invited by Ontario. So here you don't need to create any expression of interest. You just need to have your express entry profile valid. For all other streams that Ontario has, whether it's the master's graduate stream, international graduate stream, the employer job offer stream, the in-demand skills stream, all of these, for this you need to create your profile on Ontario's website, and only then you would be given a specific Ontario grid point score, based on which whenever they conduct the draws, you may get invited. So this was that draw, or rather one of those draws, foreign worker stream of Ontario. Then Ontario on the 13th, which was yesterday, they also conducted another draw, and this was where they issued 1,252, and this was under the Ontario Express Entry Skills Stream. So this is what I was talking to you about, skills trade stream. Here, the applicants did not have to create a separate profile, just for the sheer fact that they had the Express Entry profile, and their primary knock code was one of these. Hold on, let me just bring this up. Yes, if your primary knock code was one of these, this is when you would get invited for Ontario's skills trade stream. The CRS range score for this was 336 to 506. They did issue a lot of invitations, about 1,200 something. The criteria or the requirement is that the primary knock code that you have, the first two digits has to be 727382, and I think there is one more, and that, of course, 92. That is when you would get invited, because these are all skills trade. And this is basically the requirement. But also, if you're interested to apply, you should check out the Ontario's website. If you look at the streams requirement, it will tell you you need to have obtained at least 2 years of experience from the date of, this experience you should have got of at least 1 year in the knock codes 73, 82, 83, and 93. This is what you need to have. And the biggest criteria is that this 1 year of cumulative work experience should be in Ontario. So you could get invited in the skills trade stream as long as your work experience within the last 2 years is in Ontario. Only then you would be able to proceed with this invitation that you have received. A lot of people miss that. A lot of people do not identify that, and then their application gets refused and they get into trouble with that. So, obviously they lose their money. That's the trouble. But always read through the criteria. Be aware, be careful when you're submitting your application. But this was another great draw that Ontario had. 1,252 invitations were issued, which is always good. Lowest score of only 336, I think 333 or 336. That was the lowest score for this particular draw. British Columbia also held a draw on the 10th of January. 123 invitations were issued. Minimum SIRS score, skills. I forget the full name for that acronym, SIRS, but that is their portal. That's what they call their portal. And the minimum score was 90. There were also specific occupational draws for healthcare workers and early childhood educators. And then Manitoba also held their draw on the 12th of January. They invited 322 candidates. Skilled workers in Manitoba were issued 260 invitations. Skilled worker overseas were issued 20. The score was 713. The international education stream does not need a score. And then out of all these people who applied, only 27 people had an express entry profile, based on which they would get their 600 points, and then they can move on with the express entry profiles, with the applications. Express entry, of course, we have big news on that one. Finally, the first draw of the year 2023 was conducted by IRCC. It happened out of the blues on the 11th of January. Out of the blues because that Wednesday that happened, 11th of January, is not typically the Wednesday that they would conduct their draw on. They conduct it bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. So the expectation was on the 4th of January, which did not happen. And therefore, 11th of January, we were not really expecting, though obviously we were hopeful that something of that sort may happen, should happen. And it did happen, thankfully. They did invite 5,500 candidates from the express entry pool, which is again exciting because this is the largest express entry draw for almost, I don't know, a year now, a year and almost, yeah, actually a year. But the CRS score, as expected, was 507. It was a higher score than earlier, from the earlier draws. It was expected, right? Because there was a gap of about, how many days gap? There was 50 days. 50 days since the last express entry draw on the 23rd of November. So with that 50 days gap, obviously we expected that the score is going to go up, not down, because of the number of people who keep getting added themselves into the pool. And with that, let's see how many were added into the pool. This is what it is. This is how the express entry pool breakdown looked like on the 11th of January. Finally, IRCC released the pool breakdown on the day of the draw itself, which is always good, because that gives you a much more realistic indication of what the pool breakdown looks like. And that being said, 601 and above was 2,995, which is almost 3,000. So these were basically the people who had received nominations. 501 and above was about 3,897, which is, to be very honest, quite high in terms of the numbers. 500 plus scores. I mean, come on, guys, how do you manage to do it? This is great score. And then 491 to 500, that number also was up at 3,141. 481 to 490, the pool breakdown showed 11,783 applicants there. So overall, quite a big increase in several ranges. But the biggest, where we were more interested in was 500 plus, where you had an increase of 6,892 profiles. The remaining number of profiles in the 500 plus range after the draw that happened is 1,392. Okay. And based on this, and that is the reason why we are excited with this. One, because the draw happened on the Wednesday when we were not really expecting it, to be very honest. So therefore, that gives us a little bit of hope and a little bit of, keeping our fingers crossed kind of a thing, that, put out some positive energy out there and pray as well that there possibly may be a draw next Wednesday, because that is the Wednesday which ideally should have had a draw. So this 11th of January draw was a bit of an anomaly, and and then 18th of Jan is when you would have rather expected one. So if at all IRCC does conduct a draw on the 18th of January as well, then that would be great, because that would absolutely push the scores down. You would be looking at 495, 496 kind of a score, which is what we all want, to be very honest, because from there on we can then start hoping and praying and looking forward to the following draws again going below 490, which should have happened by now had the draws not been paused. So therefore, it's quite hopeful. And based on all these numbers, based on all these datas and all these trends, my anticipation is that the scores would rather have a possibility of going below 490 by the February of 2023. And that's what you're looking forward to. So the next draw, whether it happens on the 18th of January or whether it happens on the 25th of January, I just hope that the number of invitations stay above 5,000, because if they do maintain that 5,500 that they've done it this time, I hope they do another one 5,500. We definitely will see a drop and the scores to come down to 493, 495. Very simple, right? You can see there are 1,392 profiles above 500. There are about 3,000 profiles above 491. That itself gives you a number of about 4,000 something, 4,500. Of course, there would be people who would come into the pool. Okay, there would also be people who would be getting nominations. So if you add all of this, you are looking at a pool with 491 plus in a range of about 6,000 people, give or take. Of course, it can never be an accurate number. So if at all IRCC does hold a draw, whether it's on the, as I said, on the 18th of January or next week after that, you are looking at the number if there'll be 6,000, approximately 6,000 people, as I said, and if they do conduct a draw of about 5,000-ish, then definitely the scores should be looking at in the range of 493 to 495. And that's the reason what I'm keeping my fingers crossed for and hoping and praying that it should happen. If that happens, that basically will mean that there are only 500 people, give or take, of course. You see, now these are all speculations, of course, right? I don't have these numbers. These are all, you're just calculating based on all the previous numbers that you have seen in all the different pool breakdown. Between 491 to 500, the numbers do not grow drastically. It's 500 plus that happens, and it's the nominations that happen. So I'm adding those numbers as well. And therefore, when I'm saying about 500 to 700 people will remain after that draw with the 491 range, that obviously tells you when the next draw happens, and that would be in the month of February, scores definitely should go below 490. And that's what we are all looking for. We want to see the scores coming to 480s so that a lot of you who have been waiting, and there's a big number. Let's see how many people are there. There are 11,783 people waiting above score of 481, between 481 to 490. So those people also are desperately and anxiously waiting for this relief to come through. So February is my guesstimate at this point of time, based on all the data, the trends, the numbers, the cycles that we have seen, and hoping and praying that IRCC continues with the 5,500 draw, or 5,000 at least. Give 5,000, right? They did not do 3 draws. The least they can do is at least have 2 back-to-back draws and issue 5,500 kind of invitations. That would at least balance out everything that they have messed up. Now, on that note, also, excuse me, there are still some glitches there that we understand. A lot of people did not receive their invitations in the previous draw on the 23rd of November, of course, that they should have received. A lot of people have come back and said that they haven't received invitations even in the last draw on the 11th of January. Now, for those people, while I'm sure you anticipated and your scores should have given you the draw, please check your knock codes in your work experience or your work history. Have you made the correct changes? Does your primary knock code, does your specific individual knock codes for your all work experiences, have you changed them to the knock 2021 TEER system knocks? Have you made that changes? And after having made those changes, have you submitted your profile for that to be accepted into the pool? Kindly check that, because we have realized a lot of people who were saying or stating that they did not get an invitation. When we went and checked into their profile, they actually had not updated their knock codes correctly, and therefore they were not eligible in the express entry pool, and hence they did not get an invitation. So if you're one of those who did not get the invitation, first thing you should do is give a check on your express entry profile, take a look at it and see if you did actually update your profiles to the correct knock codes as per the new knock 2021. Moving on. In the other news, IEC 2023 pool is now open. Now, this is something which has been my favorite on TikTok. Hold on, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Now, this obviously, what happens is that whenever these kind of news happen, a lot of people want to make these TikTok videos. So what is IEC? IEC stands for International Experience Class Canada. Okay. And in this situation, Canada has bilateral agreements with certain countries whereby Canadian citizens are eligible to apply for certain visa categories in those countries. And by that, Canada also has those countries or citizens of those countries who are eligible to be able to work in Canada, get Canadian experience, be in Canada for longer duration of time. And this is what IEC is all about. This pool opens every year and then closes every year. The draws are held regularly, just like express entry, and this is how it happens. The IEC pool obviously opened this year again in the month of January. People were asked to, apply. They are allowing, this time they were taken about 90,000 applicants from the partner countries. And this offers exposure to people or citizens from 36 partner countries to come and work in Canada if they wanted to. Working holiday, young professionals, this is what the stream is all about, okay? Now, what usually happens is when this kind of a stream happens, a lot of TikTok videos come out, a lot of Instagram reels come out, and they start saying this and this and this and all those kind of ridiculous scenes, saying that you don't need IELTS, you don't need LMIAs, you don't need work experience, you can be up to the age of 35, and Canada is giving you a LMIA exempt work permit. Apply and check out my views and check this and check this. What happens is people get misguided, they misunderstand the whole process and the program, and they start panicking or they start rushing into either these consultants trying to book their consultations or signing up with them and falling prey to losing a lot of money. Don't do that. Always when you see these kind of reels, you see these videos, you see these news announcements, please, all you need to do is Google. Google, you have a great search engine, or Yahoo or Bing if you're using that. Just search the internet for the specific category or the stream and then check the requirements or the eligibility requirement. Are you eligible? Are you a citizen of one of those 36 countries? That's the first one. Are you within the age bracket? So in most cases, it is between 80 to 30 years, and for some countries, it is up to 35 years. Those individuals, those nationals are eligible to apply either for as a young professional or as I said, IEC, and they can come on a working holiday. Now, all of these are not open work permits. Some of them are. If you are coming to Canada on a working holiday, you could be on an open work permit. But the young professionals or the co-op or the internships, those are usually closed work permits. Okay, so it's not really open work permit. But yes, of course, they're LMIA exempt. But be aware of this situation. Be aware of the stream. Be aware of the categories before you jump and start panicking that you have missed out or you should also be eligible. Indians are not eligible, Pakistanis are not eligible, Sri Lankans are not eligible, Nepalis are not eligible, Bangladeshis are not eligible, most of our Middle Eastern countries are not eligible, most of our African countries are not eligible. So again, and the reason why I'm naming these countries is because most of my audience is from these countries, and therefore I'm naming these countries so you are aware that you possibly may not be eligible under the IEC class, and therefore don't worry too much about it. Don't freak out too much about it. And if in doubt, ever in doubt, always Google comes to your rescue. just Google the stream. Just check the stream. Just figure out which one it is and check the criteria. I mean, that's the basic thing you can do. Check the criteria, read through it, and you will know very quickly whether you are eligible for it or not. So, of course, IEC pool is now open. If you are from one of those 36 partner countries, then this is a great opportunity for you. Immigration backlogs continue to gradually decrease, thankfully, but they are not decreasing, with a pace that we would want. In the month of January, now the backlogs stand at roughly 2.1 or rather 2.2 million people, and let's hope that they keep decreasing at a better rate than last time. The current immigration categories and the backlogs for permanent resident applications are still at 521,000. These include the express entry. The temporary residents, which has been the biggest concern, is at 1.3 million. So temporary residents is your visit visas, super visas, work permits, study visas. All of this will come under the temporary residents. And then finally, the citizenship applications. They are, even citizens are bearing the brunt of all this. So 301,000 applications as of right now. A citizenship application could very easily go over 1 year, and you could be waiting for your citizenship application to be processed. So 2.1 million approximately at this point of time is the current backlog. And we're just hoping and praying that again, I hope that IRCC sort of pushes that number up and gets these processed at the earliest, because until how long are we going to claim COVID relief and because of COVID and because of COVID? Come on, now we got to go beyond that, the COVID issues, and start looking at better ways of doing these things. Now, what to expect in the year 2023? What is the future of express entry draws? Will there be a reduction in CRS scores? When will the program specific draws start? When will the next draw happen? Now, we have done this subject a few times already this year. If you haven't seen my earlier videos, then hopefully you would take a look at them. I did a detailed video on a 2023 outlook as to what are the expected changes that are coming forth in this year, or what we can expect in this year. As far as the express entry draws are concerned, I am so glad and thankful that they have again resumed, that express entry draws are back. And so we can again start speculating, which is my favorite pastime, as to what the CRS scores could look like, could be, how they could sort of, transpire. And that's what we are all hoping and praying, that the scores reduce further. The biggest thing that a lot of people have been concerned about is about the Bill C-19, which is also the occupation-based or the category-based draws. Now, for those people, again, because I've done it so many times, but I'm sure a lot of you are still, again, in the dark. Category-based draws, Parliament should be informed about what the categories are by the immigration minister. Now, that should happen in the month of February, which is supposed to be the 5th sitting day of the Parliament after the 31st of January. So the 5th sitting day, hopefully in the month of February, the minister should come out and inform the Parliament what these categories would be. IRCC had earlier in the month of November on their website issued out a questionnaire inviting stakeholders to be part of this selection process, to sort of identify who can, what should the categories look like. And based on this, these categories would be identified, they would be announced. So you would know in advance what categories would be, what would be the parameters, what would be the factors. So that is something which you would be aware by the month of February. Based on that, you can always, then decide what you need to do, how you need to plan your journey ahead. Francophones, definitely you would have a lot of advantage. If you're still on the fence about French, again, I know I'm repeating like a broken record, but yes, please do take up French as a second language. That is greatly going to help you, not only in your express entry scores, but also will help you with the PNP programs. Until the Bill C-19 comes into effect. Now, in February, it is anticipated that they would announce the categories, but IRCC in their own memo has stated that they will not be ready. Their IT systems will not be ready until spring. We don't have any faith in IRCC's IT systems, so therefore I will say maybe after spring is when their IT systems will actually be ready. And again, I'm just hoping that we do not see another crash of their systems and again another pause in the draws, because they just can't manage their systems well. Okay, anyways, without going into that aspect of things, so IRCC has indicated that their IT systems will be ready by spring. Spring officially starts in Canada on the 20th of March of this year, 2023. Based on that, you can expect Bill C-19 to be implemented anywhere about, I would say, by April, May. That's my guesstimate. Until such time, until April and May, you should see express entry draws, the regular draws that we are seeing now, to continue. And therefore, the hope is and the expectation is that if they continue with the large size draws of 4,000 invitations per draw plus, we will see a good decrease in the CRS scores. Now, what the only problem happens is, or the only difference is, that if the invitations per draw reduces, which again I also expect, in my opinion, this year they would be issuing roughly 70,000 invitations, roughly, give or take a few, but not more than 70, 75. I don't see them issuing more than that because of the annual targets quotas for this year and for the next year. Okay, I'm not only calculating for this year, I'm also calculating for the next year. The annual immigration quotas and the targets do not allow for more than these number of ITAs. Unless something drastic and miraculous happens, it won't. So at some point of time, the number of invitations per draw would reduce, will come back. And once that happens, then the scores obviously will take a beating. You will see a bit of a pressure on the express entry scores as well. Until that happens, until we come to that point, and I'm hoping we don't come to that point, at least until the Bill C-19 is implemented, because that would clear out at least a lot of deserving candidates who have been sitting in the pool with the, these scores, which are good scores. So expectation is that the scores should come into the 480s by February. Now the 480s, the range between 481 to 490 is roughly 11,800. So let's say about 12,000 people there. And you have to also keep in mind, with every draw in the 2 weeks period, there are people who keep getting added with the 500 plus, the people who keep getting added with the 600 plus. And if you take that average to be about 2,000 to 2,500, then the number of people who get cleared out from the 480s range can only be 1,500 to 2,000. It can't be more than that, right? If the number of people on the other side are increasing and the number of ITAs are restricted. With that, you need at least 5 to 6 draws minimum, keeping in mind that the numbers are increasing on the 500 plus sides for the 480s to clear out. If I have to say that this will take about 5 to 6 draws, give or take whatever, then you're looking at about 3 months more for the 480s to clear out. Okay, and then that is when we will come into the 470s. So this is where it becomes very, very tricky to speculate so far ahead, with so much of uncertainty as to how many invitations per round, so much of uncertainty as to exactly when the Bill C-19 would be implemented, and how many people per draw are continuing to get added into the express entry pool with scores of 500 plus, scores of 600 plus, scores of 480 plus. That will impact largely as to when you see the scores in 470s. But in my opinion, in my expectation, you need at least 5 to 6 draws after we have gone into February. You need 5 to 6 draws for 480s to get cleared out. Okay, and for the reasons I've just told you. That is when you will start seeing 470s if everything else remains normal, and if you continue to see draws of 4,500 to 5,000 per draw. This is my expectation for the express entry for the next few months. This is how the draws should look like as we move forward, and this is what we are hoping that they continue to do. All right. So that's basically all that I have for you today. Connect with us on the social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, of course, and YouTube. And if you are still here, then please do give us a thumbs up. Yeah, just hit on that boop on that like button so that this video goes out to more people. Of course, if you haven't subscribed, then really, I'm really at loss of words as to what exactly are you waiting for. Because if you're here and if you're listening to all this, then obviously subscribe, man. We want to see those numbers going up as well. If you do wish to sort of discuss with me your application, your profile, your background, your complexities one-on-one, then I suggest you make an appointment. That's the link. You can always sort of check our appointment page out, make an appointment. We can discuss your background profiles in detail and understand what can work for you. But do follow us on Instagram, of course. We would love to sort of see you there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, of course. And what else have I got? Yeah, that's just about it. Let's get on with the questions. There are plenty of them here. Let's see this one first. Saif Ali, thank you for the super chat. I got my ITA, studied in Quebec, now working in Quebec firm, but work from home. Do I need to show any documents? I will move out of Quebec. Now, when you say you work from home, if your residence is in Quebec, Okay, if you are living in Quebec, you're residing in Quebec, then yes, you need to provide documentation, you need to provide evidence, you need to provide explanation, uh, substantiating your intention to reside outside Quebec. It's important, all right? But if you're living outside Quebec already, then the fact is, then the requirement of express entry is that your intention should be to reside outside Quebec. Nowhere does it say to work outside Quebec. The work word is not used. The word that is used always is residence. So your residence should be outside Quebec. If you're living outside Quebec, you will not have a problem. You can always indicate that you intend to live outside Quebec, and that's pretty much all that you will need to do. Man, those reels suck and make it hard for me to answer relatives every day. I ask them to shut up by sharing the CIC website, and your YouTube channel links don't have the energy to explain. I agree with you. There have been consultations from people who have seen the Instagram reels or TikTok reels and are wondering why have they not been invited? Why can't they apply for this program? I mean, before you get confused, that's what I keep telling everybody, right? Before you sort of fall into the trap, you have to understand the reason a lot of these people make reels with or TikToks with all these lucrative or very attractive no IELTS, no LMIA, work permit in 2 weeks, all these too good to be true kind of situation. They are basically meant to get views, because the more attractive that information is, the more times you want to check it out, the more times you want to share, and that's how the engagement grows for these kind of things. But always, please go to the absolute accurate source, which is the IRCC website. And all it needs from you is a little bit of research. Once you have done that, you will find out how true or how reliable that information is. Same thing applies with the GTS streams and the Global Talent and the GSS, the Global Skills Strategy stream. People always get confused as to how that works, and therefore they fall for these kind of things. So as they say, buyer beware. And as long as you are smart, the least you can do is do your research. That's all you need to do. Any chance for 481? I think we discussed the scores and the trends in detail already. Changed country, raised web form, IRCC not changed address, received PPR, raised web form, but IRCC not responding. Well, in this case, simply go to the VAC, Visa Application Center, or VFS in the country of your residence and submit with your passport request letter and a copy of your email or your web form that you may have, which had informed IRCC that you were looking to change your place of residence. So you'll have no problem with it. Don't worry about it. Okay. Ali, thank you for the super chat. My CRS score is 496. Postgraduate expires today, but I did submit an extension for work permit on December 31st to buy time. Should I expect ITA in the next draw? Well, we did discuss the details of the express entry draws, and if there is a draw on the 18th of January, which is 4 days from now, this coming Wednesday, then I would be extremely hopeful that 496 would get drawn out. If at all the draw does not happen on the 18th of January and gets pushed to the 25th of January, then I guess you would have to wait for one more draw, probably, depending. Again, it all depends on how many people get added. But 496 is a great score. One or at worst 2 draws is when you can expect an ITA. Dilip, thank you for the super chat. I work for an Indian company and moved to Canada on a closed work permit. Can I count it as a 3 years full-time experience? I'm not able to see. I mean, I'm not able to calculate the dates, but it looks like you should be. You started on the 26th of April and you're working until 25th of April. Yes, I think you should be fine with a 3 years work experience. I don't see any problem there. It's just 1 day less, so that usually will not have a problem. Okay. My CRS is 486 based on my 3 years of work experience. However, when I visited India, I got stuck there for 4 months due to COVID. I was working remotely. Shall I accept the ITA? I would suggest that you add additional months of work experience so that you are covered for that remote working. Canadian work experience basically means your work experience inside Canada. Remote work from outside Canada is not considered as Canadian work experience. Can you please advise if someone can travel with a valid ECOPR and work permit TRB? Well, this is a great question, and a lot of people are confused with this. That if you are outside Canada, you have ECOPR, you do not have your PR card, can you travel if you have a TRV. Now, you see what happens is, in the country that you may be, whichever, for example, let's say you're in India, who is interested in seeing your visa? The check-in counter or the airline? And then the immigration, I do not know why they check, but they check the visa for the country that you're going to. These are the only two individuals who are interested in checking your visa. If you have a valid TRV and they're happy to see your TRV and they're happy with that, then you would be able to cross through the immigration in those countries and come to Canada. Once you arrive in Canada, you are a permanent resident. You can show them your ECOPR and that is good enough. So to answer your question, can you travel? I do not see any reason why you shouldn't be able to travel. If you have a visa to enter Canada, that visa will allow you to travel from those countries to Canada. Once you are in Canada, you are a permanent resident. You can show your ECOPR, and the border officers over here, once they have validated it and verified it, should very happily accept you to enter Canada as a permanent resident. Happy Pongal, stay blessed. Well, happy Pongal to you. I think it's also Ugadi. It's also Lori. It's also, there are a few others as well, right? I'm forgetting. What else are we? Pongal, Ugadi. Is it Ugadi today? Sankranti, of course. How can I forget Sankranti? I've spent so many years in Hyderabad. There is no way I can forget Sankranti. Kite festivals happening all over the place. Well, it's a great festival. And yes, happy Pongal to you, and wish you all the best as well. All right, sorry, I'm at the wrong end of the question, so let's go back to this one. I got an Ontario invitations. I'm going to fill up my application. Can I still update my home address in Express Entry profile? Yes, of course you can update. There is no problem with that. Absolutely no issues. I submitted my application yesterday. Will the draw pause make my processing times faster? At this point of time, if you are submitting your application in Express Entry, the processing times are inside 6 months. So you can actually see your application being processed within 6 months. Is there a minimum wage requirement to qualify under CEC? Employer is ready to hire as a supervisor on minimum wage and debtor, but doesn't want to increase dollar on minimum wage. No, there is no requirement for the wages or the minimum wages under CEC or any criteria for that matter. The idea is, in order to validate and prove your work experience, you still need to prove that you were paid. It can always raise a flag that, are you really working as a supervisor if you are not being paid as a supervisor? That is always a concern that a visa officer may have, and that is what can flag the credibility of your work experience. But apart from that, no, there is no requirement for any minimum wages for your work experience. Is there any improvement in processing times with all the money set aside for improving the IRCC system? The improvement in processing times is evident. For example, I was absolutely shocked to see a spousal sponsorship application, which usually is 12 months average time, and IRCC is saying 14, 16, 18 months, to get processed in 2 months and like 22 days or something. Like 2 months, 22 days. Like we got the AOR within a month and we had a passport request soon after that. 2 months and 22 days for a spousal sponsorship application. Incredible. I mean, I do not know how that happened, but incredible. This was outside Canada. Spouse was outside Canada, not even inland candidate. So great one there. Express Entry applications, we are already seeing Express Entry applications being processed in like 40 days flat. So there is definitely an improved processing times, no doubt about it. You have to give credit to IRCC where it is due. So while they do make a mess of so many different things, you have to sort of applaud and say, well, this is great that they are actually processing some application. For example, we submitted an inside Canada study permit application. We got approval in 3 days. I mean, like, it blew my mind completely. The average processing times for an inside Canada study permit is roughly 28 to 30 days, which is 4 weeks. But to get it in 3 days, I mean, I'm not sure what are they eating or drinking at this point of time, but this is incredible. So when I see these kind of processing times, it blows my mind, which basically means that they do have the capability, they do have the resources to process applications this quickly. Why it does not happen in a lot of cases, I just don't know what happens there. Love the medical exam exemption, saved $250. That's a great one. Yes, anybody who has completed their medicals and are submitting their PR application from inside Canada, you could have got your medicals done anywhere in the world. You could have traveled back and forth. It's not a problem. If you have completed your medicals within the last 5 years and you are now submitting your application from inside Canada for permanent residence, then you don't need to do your medicals. You will just simply provide your old medicals, and that's good enough. And yes, of course, that can save you some money. For a single person, $250. For a person with a family of 2, 3, 4, that can mean quite a lot of money. So yeah, that's a good one, of course. Best PNP for IT professionals? Well, again, I will not tell you good or bad, but a lot of provinces do offer, special treatment. I wouldn't say special treatment, but because it's such an in-demand occupation, British Columbia, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Alberta, all these have, indicated requirement for IT professionals. But it's the best thing. What best thing to do is to check the individual provincial website and see where the criterias are, what the criterias are, what the program requirements are, and if you at all meet them. If ITA is received one day before completion of 3 years, should I decline? What and how early is the next change expected? Absolutely not. Please. The work experience in your express entry profile is as per the month, year. Okay, it's not as per the exact date. So you can receive an ITA, you can continue with your application, just submit your application after you have completed your legal valid period of work for which you are claiming points. So it's not a problem at all. Please continue. It's not an issue. What about IRCC draws for Saskatchewan EEOID? Well, you're completely confused there. Saskatchewan either has an EE stream or they have an OID stream. They do not have an EEOID. Those two are absolutely separate. If it is an OID stream, it has got nothing to do with EE. You simply get your nomination, you submit your application for PR. If it is a Saskatchewan express entry stream, once you get your nomination, you will get 600 points. You would get invited in the next express entry draw, and that's how it moves. My boyfriend and I sit at scores around 470, turn 30, but I'm not looking to move to Canada until after 2025. Would it be best to wait to apply or try to get to PR now? Anyone or anybody who has any experience with IRCC or express entry or Canadian immigration will tell you there is no such thing as later or tomorrow or a 6 months later or 1 year later. Whatever works for you today. Okay, and don't ever think of putting it off till tomorrow or later, because we just do not know what tomorrow holds. I know of people who thought in 2016 they should apply in 2018, 2019. By the time they came to 2018, the ship had already sailed. Same thing in 2017, same thing in 2019, same thing in 2020. Every time people had thought that they would do it later, or they would do it few months later, few years later, because now they don't feel like doing it, because now it's too much of an effort, now the scores are not working. They have always lost out. Unless you are taking this time to improve your scores. Even then, you should always have an active express entry profile. So if you're asking me, should I wait? I would never ever recommend waiting. Waiting is never going to help you in the Canadian immigration scenario, because of how many things change all the time. Joined Indian company, moved Canadian company on work permit. As my foreign experience matches 3 years, should I add my previous company as well? Well, yes, of course, you can add your previous companies, because if you have Canadian work experience, having 3 years of foreign work experience or outside Canada work experience gives you additional points. So you should definitely take it. Glad to see you back again live. Well, we have been doing live all the time. Okay, quick question. Received my ITA in October, submitted documents in December. How long would the process be for PR? Well, at this point of time, as I was explaining, it is average 6 months, actually happening faster than 6 months, but an average is about 6 months. Study permits, spouse open work permits, visit visa, SP was approved, traveled alone, received rejection for husband, son. Should I apply again? Rejection based on home ties, financial employment situation. Yes, by all means, since now you have a study permit, apply for your spouse open work permit and your child's visitor visa. And if your child is older than 5 years, then apply for a study permit. Called IRCC. Agent said no update to give because my file is not with them. I called multiple times, before I got an update. What should I do to get an update? I don't know. Maybe you can raise a web form and ask for update. Maybe you can submit request for GCMS notes. I'm submitting job offer letter to BCPNP, which I signed when I was hired, but it lacks the main duty. Should I attach explanation letter or revised offer letter? Well, your job duties is very, very important, very, very critical for all immigration applications. By submitting your application without including that, you're always taking a risk of getting your application refused. So I would suggest you find a way of providing job description, whether it's through the company website, whether it's through your manager, whether it's through your offer letter, whether it's through your employment reference letter, but provide job description. It's important. When can I expect an invite? I think we discussed that quite in detail. Can we travel? We just did this question. I submitted my endorsement application via the AIP program. My employer made an error by choosing the exact knock in the IMM 0157. We uploaded the updated. Is this affect my application? We made an error by choosing the exact knock. So you're saying you mentioned the incorrect knock. Honestly, I'm not clear about what the problem here is. And if you have uploaded the correct form, and if IRCC does link your new form to the old, to your application, then you should be fine. Otherwise, to be very honest, I didn't really understand what went wrong there. But if it is a question about an error in the form, then it all depends whether it is rejected at the application stage or will they accept. It's again IRCC discretion there. If I submit an application for PR, later get married, will that cause losing points on adding a spouse? No, it will not. Any chance by 486? Well, we already discussed in detail. Please watch the video again if you missed it out. If the husband is on postgraduate work permit but is not able to meet the 12-month work experience requirement for CC, can the wife go back to school with the aim to get postgraduate work permit? Yes, it's possible. A lot of people do take that option or that route in order to keep their status in Canada. Called IRCC. Okay, we just did this. All right. Study permit allows a student to work anywhere in Canada. Does working in a different province on SP lead to CRS score deduction if a student seeks to gain PR through PNP? I really did not understand your question. If you are studying on a study permit, aren't you going to their school or college? So I'm not able to understand what you're trying to ask me. Unless you're studying online at the institution in Canada, and therefore you want to be living elsewhere in Canada. Well, the work experience that you will gain while you're studying is of no consequence anyways. And because of it's of no consequence, I'm not sure what you mean by CRS score deduction. There is no CRS score deduction in your case because your work experience is invalid. When I'm saying invalid means it doesn't add up to the CRS points. So yeah, something not right with your question. I'm not sure what you're trying to ask me, or you probably are not getting this right, because your work experience gained while you're studying is not eligible, number one. So there is no question of CRS deduction. And the fact that you are living in a different province, well, that would just only indicate your intention to live in that province, and that's all that would justify. Apart from that, there is nothing else that would help you with. You mentioned Indians are not eligible for the IEC stream. If we get an opportunity through AIESEC, which is one of the past partner institution, would someone from India be picked for IEC? There are certain registered organizations who may give you a job offer, and if that happens, you may be eligible to apply. The chances for that happening are quite low, but technically, yes, you might still be able to get through that. Would you know if the processing for caregiver pathways will improve this year? I certainly hope so. At this point of time, it's easily going over 3 years, which is a lot. I received 50 points for LMIA, so I met 510. I received an ITA. Does it mean my LMIA is related to valid job offer? Again, I am not. So a lot of you are not framing your questions correctly, so I'm not able to understand. If you have an LMIA, you obviously have a job offer. If you have a job offer that is supported with an LMIA, you are eligible to get 50 points, if that's what you're asking. Okay, we did this already. Tane, thank you for the super chat. There is no question here, unfortunately. It's here. Can I claim 50 points for a validated job offer, an ICT job offer, but there is no mention of permanent employment of at least 1 year after the PR is issued to me? All right. If you do that, first of all, you would be taking a risk, and that risk is yours to take. Okay. And let's see. This is what we have. This is offer of employment, skilled immigrants in express entry. Now, when you get a new job offer, or rather when you get a job offer for arranged employment, you first of all need to make sure that you can't use the same job offer that you used to get your work permit. So if you're an ICT work permit holder, and if you're using the same job offer that you got when you tried to get, when you got your work permit, then you can't use it. All right. You can't use it. Simple. All right. And it has to be less than 1 year old, number one. And it should, where did it go? And it should basically state that it is valid for at least 1 year after we issue your permanent residence visa. If it doesn't say that, then you yourself are risking the processing of your application. I know there are a lot of cases where the employer is unwilling to mention it. And if the employer is unwilling to mention it and you have no other option, you have no other choice as to what to do, well, you can take a chance with it. You can give it a shot. I know of a few people who did manage to go through even when their employer did not mention that 1 year clause, but that's a chance you're taking. So my recommendation is, if you have no other option and absolutely nothing else going in your favor, and the employer absolutely refuses it, then give it a shot. If you're lucky, you might just get through with it. But I also know of applications that have been refused because their employment letter did not include the 1 year after PR clause. So it's a risk that you will have to take. Thank you for the super chat. I received notification of interest from Ontario, submitted my application, will move to a new team location. How to explain this to Ontario? Should a new reference letter be shared? Well, you don't need to inform Ontario at this point of time. But if that location is outside Ontario, then Ontario can have some concern. You will need to explain to Ontario that you still wish to, or you intend to live in the province. If you just need to inform Ontario about job title change, but you don't have to. I mean, unless there is a specific requirement from Ontario, you don't have to. A lot of times when people do this, right, there is no requirement from the province to give them certain information, but you go out of your way to do it. It only creates more problem. And I've seen that in some cases. So please check your documentation. Is there a requirement for you to update Ontario or IRCC? Is there a specific requirement applicable to you in your situation? If not, then don't do it. And if it is needed, then definitely do it. And then also give explanation as needed. I am PR. My single mom got 10-year visitor visa. My brother is in grade 12. Can I also apply for his visitor visa or study visa? Yes, absolutely, you can. There is no problem. I have 2 years of Canadian experience. I have 10.5 months full-time, 3 months part-time, same company, continuous. Can I count it as 1 year experience? I do not know how many hours per week you are working as part-time. But yes, if you are calculating your work experience, if you work full-time, which is 30 hours per week, anything less than 30 hours per week is part-time work experience. You can always calculate equivalent period. And if it equates to 1 year of work experience, then yes, of course, by all means, do calculate. I mean, do claim it if you need to. I have a remote Canadian job offer. If I accept, I will be working from India. Can I claim points 1 year later? You can claim points for foreign work experience. You may not claim points for Canadian work experience. It would not be considered as Canadian work experience. I will get 1 year CEC by April 2022 on closed work permit. I have LOA valid till 2024. I do not know what you mean by LOA here. Can I consider that as a job offer to claim 50 points? I just explained here. This is what you need to do. The job offer has to be made by one employer, continuous, paid, full-time, 30 hours per week, not seasonal, for at least 1 year after we issue a permanent residence visa. That is what it should indicate. Should be NOC 0123 job. And it cannot be a document that you used for a work permit, and it has to be less than 1 year old. These are the criterias or requirements for a job offer. CEC inland applicant, spouse and kids in India, IRCC mail received for confirmation of PR portal. Principal outside Canada on vacation, returning in Jan end. What to do? Well, when the principal candidate returns back to Canada, and if and then that person will inform IRCC or confirm to IRCC about their PR portal. The PR portal confirmation will happen. The spouses outside Canada would receive a passport request. And once they receive the passport request, they can submit their passports for visa stamping outside. For the person who's inside Canada, will be completing their portal request and getting their ECU PR. Can I continue my Indian IT job while on study visa in Canada? Yes, you can. There is no problem with that. My fiance is on work permit. If we get married, he will lose points. You need to rephrase your question, because at this point of time, I can't tell you, because you will have to calculate based on your factors, based on your spouse's factors, age, education, work experience, Canadian work experience, outside Canada work experience, IELTS, what kind of education you have, what kind of equivalence you got. You'll have to check that. Please discuss open work permit SOP, applying for one rejection based on home ties, financial reasons, employment situation. Well, I've never understood what this SOP is for in a open work permit. I don't know, a lot of people, I don't know who coined this word SOP in terms of an open work permit. Statement of purpose for an open work permit. I mean, you will just express your eligibility. You will provide whatever your ties to home country are. You will express your intention to return back to your home country. And that's just about it. What would you write in an SOP? Why? You're coming to Canada basically to be with your spouse, for their mental well-being, for their mental health, as a motivational, emotional support, for them to continue their studies and assist them in an emotional manner. That's basically what would go in there. Eagerly waiting for Alberta General PNP draws. Any update? No, we don't have any update. As and when that will happen, we should obviously include it as part of our weekly roundup. I have a contract job with an employer not in Canada. The Canadian immigration website states that there are no hourly limits to work in such a job when on study permit. Is it true? If you are working for an employer outside Canada, even while you are studying in Canada, there is no problem. You can do it. That's not an issue at all. If I change my status from a postgraduate work permit to a visitor in May, am I eligible to restore status again by getting LMIA within Canada because I held postgraduate work permit in last 12 months? No. If you are now on a visitor status, you will have to apply. There is a condition under which a visitor can apply for a work permit with an LMIA from inside Canada online until February. Once that is over, then you can't. Your application will have to be processed online from outside Canada, or you may go to the port of entry and apply for a work permit there. Do you think immigration to Canada will slow down because it's very hard to get PR right now? It's hard to get PR for people whose profiles are not getting them the PR, but that does not mean that immigration to Canada will slow down. On the contrary, immigration to Canada is increasing. Year on year, each year, the number of quotas are increasing. The immigration to Canada is not slowing down. Actually, it's going faster and faster. It's growing bigger and bigger. So there is no slowing down as far as Canadian immigration is concerned. It's just that it is getting more difficult for PR, and that difficulty is happening primarily because of the demand and supply imbalance. There is so much demand, and supply is limited, of course. Earlier, if the demand was 50,000 people in the express entry pool, well, there was a quota of 110,000, 120,000 people for express entry. So it was quite easy. Now the numbers are quite different. So now it's 240,000 people in express entry pool, and the quotas are only 82,880. So, it's difficult. But the immigration to Canada is not slowing down anytime soon. I am in Australia on a student visa. Can I still have my profile in express entry pool? Will I have any trouble getting an PR if I get an ITA while I'm in Australia? Absolutely no problems, no issues, no impact whatsoever. You can have an express entry profile. If you get an ITA, you can process your application. There is no problem, absolutely no issues. Canada will give us scholarship for master's degree. Yes, some colleges do, some universities do offer bursaries and as well as scholarships as well. You would have to reach out to individual colleges for the individual programs and then apply for scholarships. Question for a friend: PNP Alberta, but moved directly to Quebec after PR. Is there a risk after with IRCC? No PNP form to IRCC or Alberta. If you are an PNP applicant and you moved immediately to a different province, you are risking a lot, because this would be considered as misrepresentation. You have expressed intention to the province that you want to live in that province. However, obviously, it shows very clearly that you had no intention to live. At a time, if there is a survey audit, or if at the time of you filing your application for citizenship, where it becomes quite evident that you did not live in the province at all, rather it becomes quite clear that you had no intention to live in the province that nominated you, you may receive a PFL, procedural fairness letter, asking you as to what exactly happened over here and to prove that your intention was to live in the province and what did you do about it. If you're not able to satisfy, then that could turn into some very serious issue. Is there any way for a Canadian sibling to call her sister to Canada for PR, like family reunion or something like that? Well, you can call your sister on a visit visa. You can apply for a visit visa, but that's just about it. Apart from that, if you live in Saskatchewan or Manitoba, you will be able to give your sister additional points in their economic immigration application. If you're applying under express entry, you would be able to give your sister points under express entry. If your sister is below the age of 18 and you do not have parents, then again, under certain conditions, under certain criteria, you may be able to sponsor your sister. But apart from that, there are no other options. I've been asked for passport pages again after receiving PPR. What to infer from it? I do not know. I have not seen your passport. I do not know your application. I don't know anything. But if they have asked you for it, then you may as well provide it. Exactly when and how soon can I claim sibling points in my CRS score after his landing in Canada after his COPR? The day your sibling lands in Canada, you can claim those points. You will, however, have to provide proof or evidence or documents to show that your sibling lives in Canada, resides in Canada, status in Canada, and relationship proof. Even if my NOC is not selected in category-based draws, after learning French, can I still be invited in regular express entry draws after Bill C19 with CRS score above 500? Yes, that is a very, very high possibility. Also, mind you, if you are learning French, if you have French as a second language, a lot of PNP options open up for you. Also with French as a second language, because under the Francophone immigration mandate, again, there might be some categories within express entry itself under Bill C19 where you might also get an advantage. So French is definitely a good thing to go with. I traveled outside of Canada, worked remotely for 3 months, then came back and continued in Canada. Would 3 months count as Canadian experience? No, it do not. Any work experience outside Canada does not count as Canadian work experience. Postgraduate work permit about to expire in April, along with my wife, CRS 478, which I don't think will happen anytime soon. Planning to give IELTS again, apply for extension for both for March to maintain status. Okay, all the best. I got nomination for Ontario master stream. Do I need to show proof of funds for non-express entry? Do I need anything in the checklist? In the non-express entry stream, there is no requirement for proof of funds. However, there is a Schedule 4 form that you do complete where it asks you how much funds are you going to bring to Canada. My recommendation usually is to show enough funds, or if you have work experience in Canada, then to show document of that. But the decision is yours. There is no specific requirement as indicated on the checklist for non-express entry. Currently on work permit in Canada, received ITA, got my Indian PCC from Consulate of General in Toronto, didn't go to India after that. Is my PCC still valid? Well, if you received your PCC from outside that country, you did not go back to that country, that PCC may still be valid. What you can do is add a cover letter to that PCC stating that you got it while you were outside that country. It covers your entire duration of that your stay in that country, and that you did not go back, so it may be considered valid. That should work in most cases. 429 score, postgraduate work permit expires, not knowing what will happen at this point of time. Is it possible to look for other province? Yes, absolutely. Please look for other provinces. In other provinces, also always look for employer who will support your application, because that is the most important factor. Even with different PNP programs, employer support is very, very important. Winter Lakes, thank you for the super chat. Unfortunately, I don't see any question there. Is it mandatory to do the job with the employer for the mentioned duration in the offer letter after getting PR via LMIA for PR from outside Canada? No, there is no such. Once you become a permanent resident, you are free to do whatever may be the conditions under which you got your PR. I mean, because your PR is not conditional. There are no conditions mentioned on your PR resident document. Therefore, if you don't wish to work for that employer, you don't have to. There is no such requirement. I applied for PR work permit in December from UAE, work permit under this. Please advise the estimated time, as some of group members say Abu Dhabi VO is the worst and takes more than 12 months. Well, you applied for PR and work permit. Now, I do not know what stream you applied under, but you can please check the processing times on the IRCC website. I can't give you the individual streams for individual programs, but in most cases, if it is express entry, it's about average 6 months if you applied after the June of last year. For CEC, 8 months production engineer, 7 months junior analyst, 1 year foreign work experience, yes. If both your knock codes are valid under tier 0, 1, 2, 3, even if it is a combination of more than one knock codes, it will still calculate as 1 year of work experience inside Canada. There is no problem. As long as both the periods of work were inside Canada, both the periods of work were under a valid knock, and for both the periods of work you were paid, you can claim that points as 1 year work experience. Express entry processing times, 6 months. RNIP processing times, roughly 8 months to 12 months. Okay, you can check this on IRCC website as well. What are the chances of CEC draw this year? Whatever is happening right now is also a CEC draw. So I do not anticipate any specific only CEC program draws at all. All right, that's basically all that I have for you. I know there are a lot of other questions, and unfortunately, I cannot answer all the questions as it goes because I'm a bit restricted with the time as well. But if I haven't been able to answer your question, by all means, do post them in the comment section below after this video is over. And I would be happy to come back at a later time and then try and reply to as many questions as possible. Thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate you having taken the time to be with me on this Saturday morning. Stay safe, take care, and I shall see you next time.